Hello and welcome to another video. This is the second part in a series on a Kenshi tabletop game that I recently completed. Essentially, this is a fully realized tabletop adaptation of the video game Kenshi, the survival squad-based RPG. There'll be a link in the description below to download the game if you're interested. If you don't know, Kenshi is a post-apocalyptic real-time strategy game where you build a squad and try to survive in a harsh, futuristic world. It's pretty cool, I like it a lot, and today I'm going to be telling you about the humans of that world, which are a little bit different than the humans of ours. I'm going to be giving you some lore, some stats, at least how they pertain to my game. They're pretty much the same as actually how they are in the video game, but they have some different implications for tabletop, which I'll get into in future videos. With that said, let's talk about the humans of this world. As for what they look like, I'm sure you know what a human is. They look pretty much like humans, and I'll go over the differences between some that do differ from humans as we go. If you're rolling up a human character, you roll a d20, and if you get a 1, you're a cannibal, 2, you're a cannibal scav. On a roll of 3 through 11, you're a Greenlander, and 12 through 20, you're a Scorchlander. Cannibals, the first option, they are humans, but they've kind of devolved into animals, much like the Dead Hive, actually. They just kidnap people and eat them. They don't cook their food. They're insane. They can't talk, it seems, like they've lost the ability to speak. And there are many theories on what happened to the cannibals. These are humans who live in the very far north of the world. They aren't found everywhere. So it seems to have been some kind of localized effect. Now, my theory is that the cannibals are a result of some kind of offensive genetic program launched by whoever invaded Kenshi from space long ago. Kenshi seems to have had some kind of interstellar invasion a long time ago. It's my belief that the cannibals are either some kind of breeding program that these aliens had, or that they unleash some kind of genetic virus to make everyone dumb and animalistic, which of course would be of great benefit to these invading aliens. Whatever their origins, the cannibals are a very aggressive race. Your character is probably going to be a cannibal who has turned from the ways of cannibalism, or who is at least a little more intelligent than the average bear, maybe can speak, understand basic concepts, that kind of thing. The cannibals, as opposed to cannibal scavs, this will become important later. Cannibals have red paint, cannibal scavs have green paint, and at least to me, the cannibals appear to be physically larger than cannibal scavs. I might be making that up, but when I play the game, cannibals always seem to be larger, but their groups seem to be smaller, like in member size. I interpret this as they've become animalistic. The red painted cannibals that are larger, they don't need to work with as many individuals to hunt prey, whereas the green cannibal scavs, they do require working with others in order to bring down their prey, kind of like a wolf versus a bear. A bear is big enough to hunt prey on its own, wolves aren't. There you go. That's kind of my headcanon of it. It might just be that that's what they decided to do for the crew sizes for Kenshi's game mechanics. But I think it's a cool lore bit if you kind of play into the animalism of the cannibal races. For Cannibal, you get 20% boosted EXP to cooking and reduced by 20% EXP to farming. Let's see which traits we get. 12 and 14 again, wow. I believe myself to be an ancient, so this cannibal believes themselves to be some kind of reincarnated member of the First Empire, and I imitate a specific animal in order to gain its power. This will be a very funny but annoying one to your fellow party members. Now, it's worth noting that the world of Kenshi doesn't really have a lot of different types of animals. I've always assumed that there are more types of animals than what we see in the actual game, like there might be crocodiles or lions or something. But I also agree with the interpretation of just having the creatures that are in the game, garus, goats, bone dogs, and the other ones, and that's literally it. If that's what you're going to do, just make sure that your players know what animals are available to imitate. So then we move on to cannibal scavs. They're pretty similar to cannibals, honestly. A lot of the lore is the same. Some kind of weird de-evolution. They wear green paint instead of red. Cannibals do paint themselves with this very strange symbol, which many have pointed out bears resemblance to the symbol used in the Holy Nation for their religion, the worship of Akron. Cannibals paint this, it's only on the women, I think, and it sort of looks like a womb almost, but it's very clearly evokes the image of Akron as well, and so people have many, many theories on that. I think it all goes back to Stobe, but we'll talk about that in a future video. Cannibal scavs, essentially just cannibal, but green and maybe smaller if you believe my fevered ramblings. The stats are just the same as the normal cannibal, boosted by 20% EXP to cooking, and reduced by 20% to farming. The traits we got this time were 8 and 10. I believe in an animistic form of flesh magic, that's cool. And my scrawny body can wriggle into places impossible for most humans. So this cannibal scav is very small and wiry, maybe a result of the degradation of their genetic code, and they believe in some kind of weird eldritch flesh religion, which is very cool. So then next is Greenlander. Greenlanders are just your normal human, and basically Greenlanders live in an area of the world. It's near the center west of the map, and I'll put up a map right now and kind of circle the area they live in. They live in an ethno-religious state called the Holy Nation, and the Holy Nation makes it their business to invade other lands and purge them of all of their inhuman occupants. They have a very strong faith in a god known as Akron, and they believe that a devil figure Narco, which is Akron backwards, is trying to destroy the world, and only their faith can stop him. They believe that the Phoenix, who is personified by their ruler, Holy Lord Phoenix, is destined to save the world by leading them to the path of Akron so that Narco can be thwarted and the world can continue on. There's a lot of fire symbolism in this religion. The fire must keep burning. The Phoenix keeps a giant brazier of flames in his palace, as do many of his inquisitors. It's sort of Zoroastrian, like the conflict between the darkness of savagery and the light of civilization. Many people believe, with a lot of evidence, that the Akronites are remnants of the original civilization of Kenshi, and that being defeated by whoever invaded them has given them a fanatical devotion to preserving their civilization due to the trauma of this invasion. For a quick example of why they are so dedicated to this, if you ever get the chance, look very closely at the beak thing model, and you will see it's not a bird face. It's actually a human face that's been warped into this kind of bird shape. So it almost seems like the aliens came and they kind of did some pretty bad things to humans. They like genetically altered them into animals. That's pretty scary. So you can see why the Akronites are so fanatical, and they basically attack all the other nations. They want to destroy all the hivers. They want to destroy all of the skeletons. They see skeletons as servants of the devil, Narco. There's a bit more with that, but we'll talk about that when we get to skeletons. They also see Scorchlanders as like second-class citizens, but they don't always purge all of them. And of course, they hate the cannibals as well. Greenlanders get boosted EXP by 20% to science, cooking, and farming, and no reduced skills. Let's see what traits we get. A 5 and another 14. I love food, farming it, cooking it, eating it, everything. And I had a near-death experience which defined my life. Just coming up with something off the top of my head, maybe this guy was a farmer and he fell into a river and was almost eaten by river raptors. And this is what inspired his deep faith in Akron, if indeed he is a Greenlander from the Holy Nation and not from the United Cities or the Tech Hunters or somewhere else. And finally, we have the Scorchlanders. The Scorchlanders are found mostly in the northeastern side of Kenshi. I just realized I'm reflected, so over here, actually. Don't trust my hand positions from before. Anyway, they basically live in an empire called the United Cities. There are also Scorchlanders in the Holy Nation. However, they tend, again, to be second-class citizens. They get thrown in jail a lot. Scorchlanders are also black. I think it's a very clear parallel there. They do have a few traits that are not traits of normal humans. Scorchlanders have like silvery white hair, and they have yellow glowing eyes. So they're kind of like normal humans, but almost like they may have evolved to do something. I'm not sure why they have glowing eyes or silver hair. I'm not sure what benefit this might confer them, but it seems like that's what's happening. I like to say that the lore is that the Scorchlanders lived underground after the invasion happened, and that living underground forced them to develop like night vision, and it bleached their hair because they were underground, kind of like deep sea fish. Now, it kind of doesn't make sense because wouldn't their skin also be like super pale like those underground fish are? But, you know, you can just say that maybe their hair evolved quicker and they would have eventually if they stayed down there longer. Anyway, I like to think the eyes are give them night vision, but that's not a mechanic in the game because the game doesn't differentiate based on darkness. Small note, the game does actually differentiate based on darkness. There are some penalties to doing things in the dark that Scorchlanders still have the same negatives of. They don't get rid of those, so that means they probably don't have night vision in the mechanics of Kenshi, but I really like the idea that they have night vision because they have glowing eyes. And so I still stick with that, but that's headcanon, and the game kind of not only doesn't support that, but kind of supports not supporting that. So, do with that what you will. The United Cities kind of sells itself as a constitutional monarchy, but it's really kind of a feudal divine right monarchy, very similar to the Holy Nation, but I would say a little less bad. So in the United Cities, they don't purge the hivers, they don't purge the skeletons, and I didn't really go into this in the Holy Nation, but they also have very restrictive laws towards women. In the United Cities, these seem to be relaxed somewhat. The United Cities is basically propped up by a massive slave trade. Essentially, they have these huge areas of just the most brutal slavery one can imagine, and this is how they fuel their feudal state. Just wanted to add another little note here. The reason that I say that the United Cities pretends to be a constitutional monarchy, presents itself that way, is simply because the United Cities pretends to be an empire ruled by law with their samurai, the vault, the position of the Traders Guild, and a strict system of laws being in place. They kind of do like to take on the appearance of an empire ruled by the law. But what we actually see in the game is that what Tengu wants just happens, even though he's an incompetent drunkard. His enemies are brutally punished for even the smallest of infractions, and that promise of social mobility with becoming a samurai, becoming a trader, getting some kind of court position. Most of these positions are actually hereditary and are not available to most people. And on top of that, even the ones that are not available to every race. Most hivers are used for manual labor. The Sheks don't fare much better. So basically there are two reasons that I say that they pretend to be a constitutional monarchy, but actually are a feudal state. A, they promise social mobility in a constitutional, semi-systematic way, but actually these systems don't function the way that they're advertised, and the positions they promise are hereditary. And secondly, they take on many of the institutions of a state ruled by law, when in fact, Tengu's will is absolute. I thought that was important to explain. Now, back to the general information about the United Cities. They have legions of slaves who work their farms, producing goods that they sell to others, and which they use to sustain their own empire. They are ruled by the Emperor, Emperor Tengu. The majority of their population seems to be Scorchlanders and Greenlanders. Hivers seem to be something of an underclass. They're usually found as slaves. And I don't know if there's a lot of skeletons. I don't think there's really that many of them, or any, if I can remember. But skeletons are rare on the whole of things, so I wouldn't take that as a huge sign of like they hate skeletons or something. Each area of the United Cities is under a different mistress or master, and then you answer to the emperor. There's city governors. It's basically just a monarchy. Scorchlanders get a 20% boost to athletics, dodge, stealth, armor smithing, and weapon smithing. They get a 10% boost to dexterity, a 10% reduction to strength, and a 20% reduction to cooking, laboring, and farming. Let's see what traits we get. Got a 20 and a 2. I'm bluntly honest, and looks like this character's also lost a limb, and it's their right leg again. So she's missing her right leg, and she's bluntly honest. That's our Scorchlander. Maybe she's become sort of a hardened individual after losing that leg, and that's why she's so bluntly honest. And that's a wrap on the humans. If you enjoyed watching, please like and subscribe to the video. I'll see you in the next one, which will be about the Sheks. If you're interested in downloading my Kenshi tabletop game, it's an adaptation of the original video game. Check it out in the description below. It's posted on itch.io. And with that, thank you again for watching, and have a good rest of your day or night.